Hello and welcome to Merlin's Manor. Today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the Castles of Burgundy, specifically the special edition which I have here, which is published by Awakened Realms and Alea. Now the main mechanisms in the Castles of Burgundy are going to be dice rolling, tile placement, and set collection. The game plays 1 to 4 players and even has 2 different solo modes included. The special edition has all of the expansions that have been released, including a new Vineyards Expansion released specifically for the special edition, as well as a new Chateauma solo mode that was released with the special edition. I'll give my thoughts on the various expansions at the end of the gameplay review, and will add a timestamp specific to my discussion of the expansions. Now before I get into my thoughts on the game, I'm going to start out with a brief gameplay overview. Okay, so I have the mat set up here for a 1 to 2 player game. If you're playing 3 or 4 players, you'd use the other side of the mat. Now the first thing everyone's going to do simultaneously is take their dice, and the first player will take the white die as well, and you'll roll them. And then whatever the white die rolls here, which is a 1 in this case, you'll take this first good here and put it with the corresponding depot, so the 1 would go right there. And then that 1 also will allow for the white castle bonus later on. If you were to take that, you'd use that white die that was rolled that round. Then the first player will take both actions using their 2 dice and any bonus actions that apply, and then play passes to the next player in turn order. Now turn order is determined by this track right here, and whoever is furthest along on this track is going to go first, and then second, third, and fourth, so on. And any ties will be broken by whoever is on top of the other player there. You take actions by using your dice to either pick up a tile from here, and so we got, let's say, this 5 here, and let's just go ahead and make this one a 1. And so for the 5, I could have taken this tile and put it in my key space as an action, and then with the 1, I could go ahead and use it to place that, just like that, where there is a 1 there, and it has to be adjacent to something that's already on your board there. Other things that you can do with your dice include spending a die to get 2 workers. These can be used later on to adjust your die up or down, 1 per worker spent. So if I were to spend 2 workers here, I could take it from a 5 around the corner to a 6 and then to a 1, because you can go either direction around the horn like that. Now when placing tiles down into your duchy, you get various bonuses depending on the tile placed. Some of the yellow monastery tiles give you endgame points and others ongoing benefits. This is an example of an ongoing benefit. This one gives you 4 points for each of this tile here at the end of the game. Green livestock tiles give you immediate points based on the number of animals that are in there. So this would give me 3 points. And then later, if it was in the same section, I put more cows here, I would get these 3 points plus whatever's on the new set of cow tiles. The blue tiles give you the ability to grab any set of these from one of the depots, and so right now I wouldn't be able to grab that one, but let's say I had this situation going on where I didn't have that. I could grab this. If there was 2 in there, I could grab all that was in that one, as long as I had space to put it with the different numbers here. Same ones will stack on top like that. If I didn't have the extra space, like in this situation, I would just have to leave that one behind, and I could take as many as I had space for. And later you'll be able to sell those for points and a coin. And then you go up 1 space on this track also when you take that blue tile action. Gray mines give you 1 coin per mine that you have at the end of each phase. And then red castle tiles give you a bonus action as if you had rolled any die when you place those into your duchy. And then beige building tiles give you a number of different bonuses as shown on here. You can just kind of check out what all those do. And also on the other side of this player aid, you have all of the yellow tiles, what they do if you don't understand what's shown on the iconography there. Now whenever you sell goods as an action, you sell all of the goods of that number. So let's say I had rolled a 6 right here, and I'm spending that 6 to sell goods. I sell all of my 6 goods, and I get points equal to the amount of players. And so if they were playing a 3-player game and I sold 2 goods, then I would get 3 times 2 points for 6 points. In a 2-player game, I would be getting 2 points. In a 4-player game, I would be getting 4 points per good. You also get 1 coin regardless of however many goods you sold. Whether you sold 1 gold or 3 golds or whatever, you still get just 1 coin. You also can take a bonus action once on your turn to turn in 2 coins to buy a tile from the black depot in the center. This can be done at any time on your turn. It can be done at the very beginning, at the end, between actions, whenever you want to do that. Now, when you fill a region of the same color of tile, you'll go ahead and you'll score some points at that time. You'll score between 2 and 10 points. I'm going to move these out of the way here, depending on which round you are in. So in the first round, you'd get 10 points, plus however big the section is. And so if you fill in a 1 section right here, then you would get 1 point plus 10 points for the first round would be 11. In the second, it would be 8 points plus the 1 for 9. If you fill in this 5 section here, you go look, you say, I get 15 points for filling in the section, plus whichever round you are in. Those points are going to be bigger if you score them in the first round than if you score them in the later rounds. And so you're incentivized to quickly fill in those regions in that manner. Now, if you are the first person to fill in all the tiles of the same color in your duchy, then you will claim the top bonus of these different tiles here. In a 2-player game, you get 5 points. In a 3-player game, 6 points. And in a 4-player game, 7 points. If you're the second person, you get the next tile down, which is 2, 3, or 4 points, respectively. And after that, there are no more of those tiles. And so only the first 2 people to fill in all of one color on their board will be able to take advantage of that bonus. At the end of 5 phases, made up of 5 rounds each, the game is over and you score additional points for monasteries with endgame points, for coins that you have left over, for unsold goods, and for every 2 workers left over, you'll score a point as well. The player with the most points wins the game. Now let's get into the game review, starting with the art and components. I had thought of getting earlier versions of this game because the gameplay sounded interesting, but the art and the components had caused me to hesitate because they really did not pull me into wanting to get the game with those original versions. The special edition changed all of that and actually pulled me into wanting to get this game. The components are great, especially if you upgrade to the acrylic hexes like I did, and upgrade to the Sundrop miniatures as well like I did. I did not feel the need to spring for the 3D tiles, as the constant changing out of tiles when you go to put them into the duchy just for a little extra immersion didn't seem worth the hassle to me. Changing out the red tiles for these castle miniatures right here is just the right amount of adding some 3D-ness to the game without it being too fiddly. I enjoy these different castles here that you can add to your board. There's 4 different models. The acrylic hexes themselves are very beautiful as well. It's a shame that the backs don't have the description of what the tiles do like the cardboard ones do, but it's not a big deal to read on the provided player aid what each ability does. The one negative I have for the tiles is that the icons for some of the yellow tiles are really small and hard to see from a distance, especially the ones that give bonus points for buildings, where which building it's showing on there is really small and difficult to see which building it is. It's giving you those points at the end of the game. If you do not upgrade to the acrylic hex tiles, you'll have to use the standard cardboard tiles, but the plus side is for those, there is written on the description on the back of what they do. The wooden good tiles are great. They look great. They have a nice feel to them. I like the nice metal coins here. I always enjoy metal coins as an upgrade. The victory point track markers are nice. So you got the colored dice for each player. I really like the color schemes of all the different player colors there. Especially the blue color is my favorite. I just enjoy this kind of bluish greenish kind of color it's got going on there. The player boards are great, have a place for everything. It's nice that you have a plastic overlay to hold the tiles in place when you place them. The game comes with a ton of duchy boards to add a lot of variation to the game. The drawbacks for each color tile are good. The components themselves are amazing. This is a huge upgrade to the standard and to the anniversary editions of the game. I really like the components. Now let's talk about ease of access. The game is not easy to learn. I would classify it as a mid-weight game, so not too hard either, but definitely not a light or entry-level game. On the one hand, the basic idea of rolling dice and taking 2 actions based on the number rolled is not in itself too complicated. At least once somebody wraps their head around having to use the die number for every action except for gaining workers. You have to use the number corresponding to the depot space you pick a tile up from, the place you're placing a tile into your duchy. For selling goods, you have to use the number there on the good. For some reason, I personally struggled with remembering that I need a specific number to sell my goods at first when I first started playing this game. Now, another area of complexity comes in all the different bonuses, but the game does help you here by providing a player aid, which helps you determine the bonuses, and I didn't find it too hard to go back and forth looking at that to figure that out. More complexity comes in figuring out how and when to score regions, as well as livestock and other bonuses. It can be a lot to take in at first if one is just a casual board gamer or used to lighter games. There's also generally a lot to consider on your turn, even though your dice rolls do help narrow things down a bit. Now let's get into the gameplay itself. I really enjoy how the game plays. There are a lot of things to consider, which leads to lots of meaningful choices throughout the game. When you roll dice that are not ideal for what you were planning, do you just take what the dice have given you, or do you spend workers to get a better option, or spend an action to get workers in order to give yourself more options on a future turn? On the one hand, spending an action just to get workers feels like a waste of a turn, but it can lead to having much more agency on your future turns to do what is best. While there is some luck involved with the rolling of your dice near the beginning of a round, there are lots of good options available, even if you didn't roll exactly what you wanted. And if you have workers, you can then mitigate your rolls, which you may need to do later on in the round as choices get less and less. At the beginning of the game, you might want to try to fill out a few smaller regions to score the maximum bonus points for completing in Phase 1. But the larger ones will give you more points overall, so you also want to make sure you are able to complete your larger regions by the end of the game. And so there are multiple strategies as to which tile areas you focus on filling up. Also, which color tiles do you focus in on, as each give you different bonuses that all are good. You also want to keep in mind the bonuses for filling all of the same color, and be the first one to do that especially. If you spread out too much among various colors, then you will not fulfill as many bonuses. Also, when will you grab various tiles? If there are ones that you really want, you might just want to spend workers on your early turn to make sure you can grab them up, because if you don't immediately get the dice number you need, you may take a chance on somebody else taking that tile that you wanted. You may even want to be mindful about what others are going after, so if you want those tiles that others are going to be chasing after, you need to go after them first. Livestock tiles with 3 and even 4 livestock on them are ones that may be of particular interest to everyone, as they give you that many points, and then if you get more of that same type in that region, you will effectively be scoring that tile a second time, maybe even a third or fourth time if you keep getting the same kind of livestock there. Also, some tile colors are more limited than others than each round, so you might want to snag them quickly, or else you may be forced to pivot into a different strategy if someone beats you to those tiles. This game is quite the point salad of scoring points, with many different things to focus in on in order to score points. There is quite a depth of strategy in this game. You can focus on getting bonuses that will help you get more tiles placed, or you can focus on ongoing bonuses, or you can focus on things that give you immediate points, or things that give you endgame points. The choice to take an action to sell goods can be a strong one if you've amassed several of the same number good. And getting coins through mines and selling goods and placing banks out will give you the ability then to buy tiles from the Black Depot, giving you an extra action and a bit more in the way of choice. Or you can save coins for endgame points as well. So now let's talk about the expansions. The depth of strategy can be increased with the various expansions as well. Some are very simple to implement and don't change the game much, while others really change the game up a lot. So I like to give my thoughts on the various expansions, what they do, what they add, should they be implemented early on or after a bunch of plays with the base game and some of the simpler expansions? Should they be implemented every game or depending on what other expansions are being played? So I'm going to start out with some of the basic expansions and move into the more game-changing ones. First of all, there are 4 additional hexes. 2 are monastery tiles, and then 2 are these other tiles. We got the building tile here that's a crane tile, and you have the wild geese tile. And these are simple enough to add in even from your first game and will remain in my game at all times. The crane acts as a wild building. You can trigger any building when you place this down in your duchy, and it can count as any one building for scoring monasteries at the end of the game. The geese is also a wild for livestock, and you'll basically apply it to the livestock of your choice when you're placing it. Hint, give it to the one that's going to give you the most points there. And then whenever you place a livestock tile in that region in the future, the 2 geese will be added to the victory points you score since they count as any livestock. I recommend playing with these tiles either from your first game or at least the second game and then leaving them in as they don't change the game up too much, but they add that little something extra. The white castles are also something that I would include early on and keep them in the game. When placing a white castle building into your duchy, you get to take the action of the white dice as a bonus action. Simple enough. The inns provide a wild tile added above the black depot each round. They stack if no one bought one from the previous round, which you can then buy for 2 coins just like buying from the black depot. And when you place it in your duchy, it will count for filling that region, but does not give you an immediate bonus. When you complete that region later on, you will score the region as if it was one size bigger, and so it can greatly increase your score for a region, a pretty good bonus, especially on the larger areas. But of course, you have to finish that region for it to do you any good at all. I would not start with this one on your first game, but soon after, I personally would add it in and probably play with it in most games. For such a simple thing to add into the game, it really adds some depth to the game, and it also gives some added flexibility in the gameplay. If you are having trouble getting certain colored tiles to fill a region, then boom, this will take care of that. Plus gives you a point boost when you fill the region at the sacrifice of not having an immediate bonus to help you out. Now, duchy boards 23 through 30 with extra bonus tiles for completing borders here. Now, this one plays with specific duchies, and you score a bonus tile giving you points when you are the first to form a triangle connecting the border spaces. This just gives one other thing to chase after and can add some extra depth of strategy. You do have to play with certain boards to include this one, so this won't be one you would play every time, or else you would be limited to which boards you are going to be playing with. Trade routes add a little more motivation for selling your goods, because you're going to get bonuses if you sell the good that relates to the number that's on the trade route next as you're coming up there. It has a little bit of extra complexity as well. And you're going to be selecting those at the beginning of the game either randomly, or there's a variant where you can choose the order that they go in. And then as you sell those goods, you place them on the spaces from left to right. And if the good covers up a space where that number on the good matches the number on the space, you get that special bonus. If you plan things right, then not only will you get points and a coin for selling goods, but that nice additional bonus, or even 2 if they're lined up just right for you. Now, this expansion gives a little more depth to the strategy in the game, and it's one I would add occasionally, or at least not with other major expansions. You definitely could play it with other major expansions, but to keep things a bit simpler with how the game is being changed, I just personally would not have it with the other major expansions. Playing with extra hexes and inns in the game is certainly fine for this expansion. Now let's talk about the Vineyards expansion, the one that is unique to this special edition. And it changes the game up the most out of all the expansions I've tried, probably out of all of them. It adds extra depth of strategy as you can choose to get vineyard tiles instead of the regular tiles, and these take up 2 spaces. And so they're double hexes, and you only have 3 slots still in your key space, so you have to keep in mind as you grab these, you're going to have 2 out of your 3 spaces just for this tile. Instead of placing them in your duchy, you're going to place them in a separate board, which gives you bonuses when you place them. You also start out with a bonus token at the start of the game, and extra bonus tokens every time you fill a layer of your vineyard duchy. These bonus tokens score for the highest amount of connected vines of that color at the end of the game. So you want to try to place colors down that match your bonus token, and in a manner leading them to form a chain of that color to maximize extra victory points. This is one I would actually hold off on playing until you have played several games just with the base game. And this is for 2 reasons. First of all, it adds the most complexity to the game, both in learning and adding that depth of strategy. And for the second reason, it really changes the feel of the game quite a bit. You will find yourself not filling out your duchy as much as in the base game, despite some of the bonuses helping you get tiles and place tiles. This is really the kind of expansion I would add in from time to time to keep the game fresh and to offer an alternate feeling game, and return from time to time to the base game style of play so you can experience more of the base game focused on filling your duchy, and other times have this version which splits your attention between the duchy and the vineyard board. I really did enjoy this expansion. It just offers a very different feeling experience. As such, it is great for keeping the game feeling fresh, but I would also personally at times like to continue to go back to playing the base version for its own feel. I also would not recommend this with any bigger expansions such as the trade routes or probably even the shields, which I have not actually played with the shields yet, so I cannot comment on what they add to the game or what they are like to play with. I also have not played the team mode and really don't think I would personally gravitate towards that way of playing unless we had a group of 4 that played Castles of Burgundy a lot and were looking for a way to change things up with the team mode. There are also Duchy boards 11 through 18, which is technically an expansion, but is mostly just extra Duchy boards with an optional rule for gameplay that I have also not tried out that optional rule either, but they can also be played without the optional rule there. All the expansions I have played and spoken about are great and do their own thing for adding something to the game, and I recommend trying them all out. The simple ones can stay in every game, while using the trade routes and vineyards to mix things up from time to time would be good. I suspect shields might fall into that usage as well as mixing them in occasionally. And of course, when playing with duchies 23 through 30, you can add the additional goal of connecting all of the borders. There's just so much going on with this game, and all of it is good. This has quickly shot up into being one of my favorite games. It also has great solo modes that I would like to speak about briefly for a moment here. The first one has been around for a little while now. It came in with the 10th expansion. It plays differently than the multiplayer game, as it is not about scoring points to win, but rather about filling your entire duchy by the end of the game to win. Scoring points can trigger a bonus at certain points, which will aid you in filling out your duchy. There are also some bonus changes to help you fill your duchy, and yellow tiles that give endgame scoring actually score when they are placed instead. And so you have to be careful about when you place those to try and maximize the points. I have enjoyed my plays of the solo mode, but can see it getting old after a while. But do like that it gives you an alternate feel to the game with an alternate goal. The other solo mode gives you an Automa-style opponent that runs very smoothly and can be quite competitive. It has cards that determine tiles that the Automa is going for, and you roll a die for it to determine which depot it will choose from. And there are certain rules for determining which tile it grabs, and what it does if there is not a tile available that meets the requirements. Tiles will go on the cards when it is selected, and if there is a bonus, you resolve it at that time. Now, once the card is full, you then move the tiles to a board for the Automa, which represents filling up various colors. And if all of a color is filled in on this board, then the Otama gains the top bonus goal for that color, just the same way as in multiplayer, you would grab that goal if you'd filled in all of a color. The Otama also scores points for filling out the card, which are indicated in the top right corner of each card that it fills out, just like when you fill out a region. You can also adjust the difficulty in a simple manner, which basically just increases how many points it gets for completing cards, which is like a human player completing those regions. The leftmost number is easy, the middle number is medium, and the right number is hard. You can also judge at the end of the game as to whether you would have won on different difficulty levels simply by subtracting or adding the difference between the numbers on all of the cards. I have enjoyed both of the solo modes, and while there is a decent bit more that needs to be learned to implement the Otama or the differences between the regular and solo for other versions, it's not too bad to learn how to implement the solo modes. And I have a couple videos on my channel teaching how to play the two different solo modes, which I encourage you to check out at the end of this video. There's a player aid for the Shatoma, which is a lot of help in figuring out what the Otama does with the various tiles. But one thing to note is that the tile type that grants either a castle, mine, or monastery tile to the Shatoma does not list these in the correct order for priority, which would have been helpful. Now let's talk about replayability. The game has a lot of replayability even with just the base game, as there are so many different tiles that will all come out differently each game, causing you to utilize different strategies every game. There are also a bunch of different duchies which will change up how you play the game. And of course the dice rolls are going to add some randomness to the game, which will cause you to utilize different strategies as well. Then add in the various expansions that come with the special edition here, which introduce changes that range from very small changes to major changes with how the game plays. Look at the Vineyards Expansions and how it really changes up the feel of the game quite a bit, and you get a ton of replayability in the special edition box. The original solo mode may not have much replayability, but the Shatoma should give solo players a good amount of replayability, especially since the Shatoma can utilize several of the expansions as well. Now let's go into my final thoughts on the Castles of Burgundy. I really enjoy the gameplay in this game. It has a lot of replayability, especially with the expansions that come with the special edition, and the components in the special edition are great, especially if you upgrade to the acrylic hexes. They are just very nice. I give the Castles of Burgundy Special Edition a 10 out of 10. It has quickly become one of my favorite games, and while I don't know yet where it's going to land on my top 10, it is definitely going to be somewhere on that list. I am so glad that Awakened Realms reproduced this game and deluxeified it, because it took the game from being just simply on my radar to me actually going out and buying it, and I do not regret it in the least. It is a very fun game with a great depth of strategy, and now it looks great. I highly recommend the Castles of Burgundy if you enjoy Euro-style games and don't mind a little bit of randomness introduced by the dice rolls, which guide you towards certain actions but can also be mitigated for a more strategical selection. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's given you something to think about as to whether the Castles of Burgundy is for you, whether you want the special edition that's going to cost you a little bit more but has these nicer components and art. And as I said, I enjoy it. I hope you will enjoy it too if you decide to get it. And as always, I hope you check out some more of my videos, including how to play the solo modes here, how to organize the game as well. And I'll catch you in the next video.